Hello, we are two representatives of the Pioneers of Game Development Austria, which is similar to GameDev Linz, an association that's there too. I will read you the thing. To focus on supporting, showcasing, and accelerating Austrian games developers and businesses. So we are a games business focused association, and we want to be the voice for game developers across Austria. And of course, for that, we also need the local communities, and we are so happy that Linz has such a great community already. And then, while are you already done? Okay. A few words to PGDA itself. We also have a Discord. You've seen the icon already in the slides that were shown before. You can join us at discord.pgda.at or talk to us later. I also have business cards to show. Yeah, one more thing. If you're interested in mentoring or being mentored as a game developer, go to our website. The newest news post is about our mentoring program. It's the 4th round for the spring semester, and there you can sign up and you will be matched with our human algorithm to someone who can mentor or mentee you. So you write who you are, what you are, well, what your qualifications are, what is self-descriptory, hopefully. And then you write what you're looking for in a mentor or in a mentee, and then you will be matched by a human algorithm, RAF. Well, sometimes not everybody gets a match, but this is the 4th time we're around. Usually we get positive feedback, so it would be great if we had a lot more applicants to that program. And another thing we do is last year we managed to get the money together to finance a scientific study about the game development landscape. This is the second one. The first one was in 2018. You will see the difference between the two in the presentation. So that we have hard numbers to present to stakeholders in politics and other countries. And I think without further ado, my colleague Martin will tell us about the study.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for your attention for the next 15, 20 minutes. What we haven't done is we actually haven't introduced us somehow. So, in case you don't know Dietmar, he is one of the earliest or youngest game developers in Austria, doing that for quite some time, for over 25 years.
No. Don't make me older than I am.
Okay,
over
sorry.
20 years.
Okay, so apologies. So I'm the guy who's doing this for more than 25 years because I'm older than Didel. I'm pretty sorry. And we are in the industry for quite some time, and both of us, and that's the reason why PGDA was founded, is giving something back, because we all know how hard it is to enter the industry. And the reason why PGDA was founded is one thing, obviously, to increase awareness in Austria for decision makers, to make them aware that there is a game development scene here. And of course, with the mentoring program that Didel mentioned, we really would like to help and give back, because we know it's hard. And we feel both quite well. I project. I feel very privileged to work in this industry, since I had a very good time in the last 25 years and still have, besides dark clouds that are part of any job. So that's just the introduction. Apologies for the compliments that I did. Focus now on the game development study. A quick overview. People already mentioned the first study was done in 2017-2018 by the same institution. It's a very established and prestigious study organization that is doing a lot of these kind of things. In German, it's I never feel there's a proper translation in English. I might learn that today, but they are focusing on volkswirtschaftliche Studien, and that's the reason why the economy is very important and the foundation of what can be, what kind of value can be added coming out of an industry for the entire country. And you see here an overview how the study was set up. In case you joined and participated, thank you for your data. And you see here the focus points. It was an online questionnaire, quite complex, I'm aware. It is about the economy, as I said before, and since it was co-funded by the Economy of Chambers, basically they paid 2/3, we paid 1/3. This is what we were able to afford. We need to follow a certain guidance from them, and they wanted to have focus on serious games and education, because only popcorn is difficult to sell for politicians and decision makers. So we need to show the entirety of our landscape that we are offering with game methodology and game mechanics. Good. And there's always a thank you. As I said, 1/3 of the study was paid by us as an industry. And these fine companies and universities chipped in a little bit of money to finance the overall study. It is a quite significant 5-digit euro number that is necessary in order to gather this data and create this study. So we're very thankful for all these companies that were willing to pay a significant amount to make this happen. Thank you for that. Good. So the core data, what we have learned in comparison to 2018. We are, believe it or not, around 150 entities that are creating games in Austria. That is, in absolute numbers, low, but what is significant is the increase in comparison to 2018, with 70% plus more entities that are creating games in the wider sense. It's not only popcorn entertainment, it includes also serious games. And no wonder that hasn't changed. Our structure is micro and small enterprises, meaning micro is below 10 and small is up to 50 employees of the company size. That's a standard measurement on global scale. And as you can see here at the bottom, the capital is hosting the majority of those companies, even though you will see later on, especially in education, Vienna completely sucks. We don't have good education in Vienna, and that's the reason why a lot of Viennese companies are collaborating very closely with universities here in Upper Austria, in Salzburg and in Graz, and see that as a very important talent pool. And this is a very significant number, which gives us a lot of credibility towards politicians and decision makers, and especially Economy of Chambers, who paid 2/3 of the study. Over 50 people that were over 50% of people that were approached returned and completed the questionnaire. That is a bit lower than the last time, which was a bit sad for me, so I spent a little bit of crying in the back corner in my office. But since there are so many more people and the pool has become bigger, the number is still significant, because believe it or not, the Economy of Chambers and also ministries, when they do studies, which cost a lot of money, they, of a maximum, get 15% return. So the first time we did this, nobody believed that number. So they are very keen to see that there's a community that is engaged and takes care of what's happening, and when they are called, they participate. So that's the first plus that we already got 2018. And now to some selected results of the survey. That is extremely significant, what you see here. In the last 10 years, a lot of governments told all of us that it's important to be high educated, the young digitals, the natives, the digital transition, the 3 T's that are necessary in order, from an economy standpoint, to move forward. So what we're very young. The majority of employees in our industry are below 35 years old. And that is a very significant number that is not, how do you say it in English? It's unseen, is that a word? Unseen in other industries, that we have 80% academics. in our industry. So I sometimes get the questions, yeah, but is it necessary? Do I need a formal education? No, it's obviously not. That is also the other good thing about our industry, that you don't need an academic degree to hit or to crash through the glass roof. But formal education is a good thing because it helps with the first steps. And we need to thank especially the Universities of Applied Science, who started in 2007-8 to kind of work with the industry and work with the topic game development. So thank you for that. And a lot of people that I guess are in this room, and a lot of people that are working with us in our studios are graduates from these studios. And we are young, that's obvious. I usually ask this question when I do presentations at universities. Do you know when the first game-focused company was founded in Austria? So the first game studio was a limited company. When that was, roughly? Any idea? Yes?
Vikingdomsprogrammet, hvad deres påstår det?
Potentially, I wouldn't know that.
Jowood?
Jowood is a good choice, but it's not the first one. Yeah. In case you don't know Jowood, that is still a very bad thing that really doesn't help any of us to get money from a bank. Because the banks lost so much money with Jowood that we are a red tissue for that completely until today. No, but we're close. Jowood was founded in 1995, in case that helps. So obviously that was earlier than that. It's 1991, and do you know, can you guess where that happened? Which district? It's not the obvious choice, it's not Vienna.
Vorarlberg.
Close.
Tyrol.
It was Styria, Schladming, Enstal. And they founded or created a game that is still around until today, so super successful. The company was called Max Design, were founded by two brothers and a colleague that they work in the school together, and they created Anno. Anno is still around, and it's actually an Austrian brand originally. Yeah. And what we see, and I think that is related to the end of the pandemic, which had been very good to us. In case you're following or watching Mystic Quest, I'm not gonna dance. Nobody's watching it. Okay, good thing. It's just a waste of time. The estimates when we asked how do you see the next couple of years, since the industry is not in a good state at the moment. Obviously, we are more pessimistic, sorry, as we have been in 2018. Good. So. Core numbers. Everything got bigger. That is the bottom line. And again, the absolute numbers are not that interesting. It is the growth that is interesting and the estimates moving forward. So you see here that we have 70% more companies. That's something I mentioned already before. Now it's visualized. We have more than doubled the people that are working in the industry, with more than 1,000 commercial developers, or being able to make a living with game development. And quite significant, the revenue that we're creating has almost tripled in 6 years. That is significant, and that raised a lot of eyebrows, with politicians, and helped to open a few doors and helped us to increase the awareness about the industry in Austria. Yeah. And as you can see here, the growth estimates for the end of the decade was already reduced with the peak of the pandemic. So this is lower, so its curve is not exponential, but still without the pandemic and with a reduced estimate, the numbers are, when you compare it to industry, classic old economy, nobody else is getting close to these kind of numbers. So we are young, highly educated, part of the digital transition, that everyone is talking about, and it's already here. So we are part of the ecosystem, and slowly the politicians that we talk to are realizing that, which will hopefully make it easier for us in the years to come. Good. Then for the next slide, to give a bit of a head start what this means from an economic point of view, we have direct effects. These were the revenues that I mentioned with around 90 mil revenue that we create. But on top, we have whatever it is in English, indirect.
Indirect effects.
Yeah, thank you. We're all not native speakers, so apologies. That means that a game studio most likely won't do payroll itself. You won't do your taxes yourself when you're a limited company. So you're hiring a tax advisor. You might hire someone from a production point of view who's doing audio for you, or maybe extra QA when you do, I don't know, console development and you need functionality testing at the end. So the money that we spend in the industry, and it goes back to the economy. These are these indirect effects. And then are the
Induced effects.
thank you. I'm glad you're here. That means that with the salaries that we all get, we are getting out there and buying food, drinks, we go on vacation. So our money that we raise in this inner circle is spent in the economy and goes back to the economy, which is an important factor from the overall added value, how an industry is perceived from an economic point of view. And this brings me to this slide. So the actual number that is important to remember, we generate almost 200 mil added value in Austria. That is a significant number. That is way higher than last time. Last time in 2018 we had, I think, 50 mil. So again, we tripled, more than tripled that. And you see here, very simple. So we generate 90 million revenue with games, and this creates an overall added value of 200 mil. This is the value added. In German, if you want to know this Wertschöpfung that we create in an economy, in an economic system. And here again, these are core developers, 1,000 people. And then with all the people that we hire, tax advisors and so on, or people that are working in a bakery where we spend money, these people are also counted here. So overall, the industry takes care of more than 2,000 people in Austria. And that brings me to a very scientific macroeconomic index. This is the multiplier. So every euro revenue generates more than 2 euro. And we see here again, 1 employee equals 2 employees. Nothing to remember, I'm just mentioning it here because it was part of the study. Yes, and then just 2 slides about this focus topics that were important for the economy of chamber. I think that it's important for all of us in game development. The company that I'm working for, we obviously focusing on popcorn and entertainment, but we sometimes branch out when we are asked, and we're working with industry partners with game technology and game methodology, and I think it's a good opportunity to create projects, or get projects, and to create revenue and value for a company if you're thinking about these alternatives or options, working with games but not on the entertainment side. And you see here that serious games is up and coming, and as a very simple thing, training and learning is the most important part here. And I think we all agree that especially for scholars and pupils, that hopefully the days of a teacher that is standing here like I am now and talking for hours and hours and pupils just have to listen is soon over, and that training and learning and education will be more interactive, will be project related, team based, because this is what the industry also needs when you go out there and finish an education. This is how your day-to-day business looks like. and games could help here, or not could, are already helping. That's the reason why this is an increasing market segment. And then something very positive to mention here in Upper Austria, the education map. You see here, clear winner, Heidelberg. Actually, the first ever intern that I hired in my career, that was in 2001 or 2002. That was a person from Heidelberg. I only remember his first name. It was a Tobias. I can't remember his last name. And he helped shipping Max Payne 1 Japanese version. That I remember. Yeah. Yes. So you see here, again, thanks to the University of Applied Science, who picked up game development and believed in it and started very early offering curriculums. And the successes here, you see Vienna sucks completely. It's really, really bad. So Heidelberg and Salzburg are the main drivers in regards to education in Austria. And Klagenfurt is up and rising. They have a very interesting approach. They came actually from language and language interpretation and analyzing the medium games. And they were so successful that the students pushed them to offer also classic programming and design courses, and now they're expanding and they're quite large what they're offering, and there's a very good curriculum in Klagenfurt. And Graz, this is a one-person thing. That is Johanna Pirker, in case you know her, the grand dame of the Austrian game development, even though she's so young. But she's a driving force, and I don't know where she's taking the energy. And if she starts walking, step aside. She will walk over you. She has so much energy. She's a very cool person. So, and we're very happy that she's a driving force in Austria. Okay, so in case you have a question, and in case you're bored, please let me know. Okay, good. This is for me an important thing, and for the PGDA. We need to understand that from an external point of view, when we are, or how we are perceived from potential investors as a location that is providing and offering game development, projects are a currency. Yeah? Investors are not interested in one studio, or when there's not a talent pool available or no education. It's always the package that is important. And the value of a location, Austria as a nation, as a game developer nation, is perceived and calculated by the amount of projects that we have an output with. So that's really important to focus on that. That's the reason why there are several initiatives. PGDA started 3 years ago the Talent Award, for example, to put some spotlight on the education facilities in Austria, the universities, but also on the projects that are coming from there. And the better we get, the easier it will be at one point to have a game-focused incubator, for example, because there you also need to have a critical mass. We can't start an incubator with 2 projects or 2 teams. It needs to be larger, and that's the reason why this project is so important. And that's the reason why I've chosen this overview, because you see that also the number of projects has significantly increased in the last 6 years. That is obviously reflected with the amount of people that are working in the industry and the increased number of studios that are available. That goes hand in hand with the projects. But it's important to understand that this is the currency that we need to speak about when we talk to people outside of Austria, trying to get the attention for us and for the site in Austria. Yes, and this is just repeating what we saw before. In case you don't, I mean, I guess you know, we are Austria, so titles are super important, and you might know that there was always a quarrel between universities and the universities of applied science. That's the reason why science people always separate universities from the universities of applied science. Story, historic grown. Fact is that we have 80% of the staff that is working in game development has a former academic education, which is again unseen in any other industry. And you see here what you saw before with the landscape, that Salzburg and Hagenberg are absolutely leading in that area. And this is something that I also mentioned before. You see here that almost 50% are below 35. And you see here very good, when you compare 18 and 24, that I assume a lot of people just stayed in the industry and got older, and that's the reason why some segments just shifted to the older segment. Which is a good thing, right? The important thing, and that is, I'm taking the freedom to speak for all the larger studios in Austria. Mipumi, where I'm working, is certainly doing that. We believe that the industry did a lot of harm in the last 20 years to a lot of people, and we need to think differently, act differently, work differently, believe in people, and believe in keeping the know-how not only in the studios but also in the industry, because we lost a lot of smart people and we lost a lot of knowledge, because a 40-year-old person that has family acts differently than someone who's 20 and doesn't give a shit about anything else than just working and the cool project. But a person that has family doesn't feel that it's very cool to be in the office at 10 o'clock in the evening on a Saturday. So you need to provide you need to provide a healthy work environment and set up the organizational structure in a way that you can address also people that are my age, where I need help to cross the street from younger people. Yeah. Because we want to keep the knowledge and the seniority in the industry. That's super important. And this is the sad part. And this is a call to action for everyone who is in charge, and also to convince non-male people the industry is a good place to be. It's a safe place to be in most of the cases. It's a very lovely way of making a living. I know it's hard to enter, but when you made the first few steps, it can be very rewarding. And most of the time, the sun is shining, even though sometimes it's dark cloud, or there are dark clouds and raining. But most of the times, it's a good place, and we need to seriously work on that. That is not okay, and it is shifting slowly, but it's way too slow. Yeah. So if you speak to someone, and if a female person or a non-binary person has doubts about entering the industry, convince this person that it's a good choice to make. Yeah? Because it is really something that we actively need to do. It won't happen alone. It just doesn't work that way. We all need to work very hard on that. And staying on the sad part of the industry is funding. We know that's the best part of everything. We talked already about banks. Banks don't like us. Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, I guess you know that or have experienced that, but I can speak about Mipumi. Mipumi was founded 16 years ago, and the first 8 years, I think, or 9 years, we didn't have, and I'm sorry, I don't know the English word for that, we didn't have a Kontokorrent Rahmen at the bank, which means we didn't get any debt. So the first 8 years or 9 years, 0 was the limit. There was no minus for us. We never needed it with the help of the founders and the owners, but banks didn't like us. When you are a lawyer and start a new law firm and you say, I need 200K for a representative office, the bank says, fine, take the money. It's okay. Yeah, it's not with games. So funding is an elemental thing, and we see that it's very small. Sorry, but the majority of our funding is coming from ourselves. So either from a cash flow point of view, or we exploit, or we get money from family, friends. So however we finance the first game or the first project, that is the harshest and the hardest part. Good. That is again, let's go to the positive side. the export market. This is what kept us afloat and separated us from all the other local industries during the pandemic. How we distribute our products, how we can reach our consumers, and how we can interact with our consumers. And similar to other industries in Austria, Austria is very small, so there's no home market to survive, so we all need to export. And in average, we have 80 or 85% export rate of all companies across Austria. It depends. Mipumi, for example, we have, I think, 90 or 95%. We mainly do our business in Europe and a little bit in North America. But our income stream from Austria is basically not existent. Yeah. And you see here also the comparison very clearly. Russia dropped because the distribution market died for good reasons, and you see that yeah, it's when you speak to other industries, they are really surprised how digital distribution works. That you just press a button and 10 minutes later, basically everyone on this planet can interact with your product. Please.
I noticed that basically everything dropped except for EU, which is pretty much the same. Don't know why. Like Russia, it's clear why, but everything else, like the whole world except for EU, seems to have dropped.
Well, that's a standard thing. You separate between the EU 27 and the rest of the European countries.
But
We
I
have
mean,
a different.
the percent, like if you look at the results from 2018, it seems there were more exports in all markets, and that reduced from 2018 to 2024, except in the EU, there it stayed pretty much the same. And
okay, here, yeah.
do you have any idea why it was like that? Like why all the exports dropped except in the EU?
No, I would need to talk to the guy who did the data thing. I'm just taking it as it was given to me. But it's a good question. I haven't thought about that. Thank you. Food of thoughts for the train ride home. Thank you.
I think what's missing here is how the percent are calculated. So is it size of projects or number of projects or number of projects of a company? So I think it should be in the study itself.
Okay, fair enough, yeah.
So if you look in there, maybe there's the answer already, although I also don't know.
Good point. Yeah. Okay, so basically we coming to an end. So what are the next steps? The study and the data is currently available on the site of the WKO, the Economy of Chamber. PGDA is working on getting the data also on our website. So for us, it is coming to you, spreading the word and giving you the latest numbers. For you, use that numbers when you talk to people, friends, family, decision makers. When you talk to people about the industry, feel confident talking about it. It's a good thing. It's worthwhile. It is a stable as it gets these days industry, so to speak. When you compare it on a global scale, we always it's hard on an individual level, obviously, what happened in the last 2 years, but still, as a matter of fact, until the pandemic, before it went crazy, the industry was growing year over year, almost every year up to 10% or above, in a very steady flow for the last 15 years. And there again, not many industries who had that growth year over year for such a long period. So that's an interesting number to tell, because it's an eye-opener for people that are working in old economy. So spreading the word, the good thing. Use those key indicators in discussions. Be proud of what you do. Be happy and tell the world that it's a cool thing to work in games. We're going to update the website, and we are going to create a leaflet, a printed one. The aim is to have that ready for Gamescom in August, so that we can distribute digitally and the analog, the core and key numbers that I mentioned here, with the key indicators, with lovely designed leaflet. and financing and funding the next study, because that was a hard work to do, to convince everyone to chip in a little bit of money. The PGDA, the board, is, at the moment at least, we have our period ends at the end of this year, so there will be election in the PGDA in December. At the moment there are 4 established and larger studios in PGDA. They can't say no, because I'm not accepting that, so they always need to pay. So I might have not been the best idea to get up for the election. But yeah, not joking, it was very hard. That's the reason why it took us 6 years to get the funding, because also the organizational side at the government changed. For example, the first time there was a minister called Schramberg, a lady that was leading the digitalization ministry. There is no digitalization ministry anymore, so we didn't get any money from there, and the WKO had issues convincing their leadership team and budget decision makers whether they were willing to give us a 5-digit euro number, and that's the reason why we had to run harder to increase the split that we were bringing to the table. So we're gonna start now, because we would like to have another study in 2 to 4 years, to have, starting with the baseline in 2018, to have regular check-ins where we are moving, because we believe and we see that we're moving forward and that we are able to show growth. And you know, as stupid as the economy is, growth is what you need to convince people to invest in things. Yes, so thank you for your attention, and Q&A is open. If there's time for Q&A. Please.
How did you gather the list of companies, or how did you decide if they are a game company or regular
That's
software company?
a very good question. We obviously need to be very careful with data in these days. What the institute EV did is, there are open databases available. So for example, everyone who's registered with the WKO is part of the database that is available publicly. In case you don't know that, it took me 1.5 years to convince WKO to add a flag in their database that you can tick that you're a game developer. So in case you're registered with WKO and have a business, please go into your profile and tick the box game developer, because that helps us to show that there are more game developers than there actually are. This was one foundation for the creating the core data set, and then there are other databases available that they just screened, and then sometimes they really called and asked, would you want to, or are you creating games? Marketing companies, for example, consulting companies, and then they were asked whether they would like to join and if they would accept an invitation. So we had 2 databases, a core A database that was, I think, around 100 entries, and then the wider one that was close to 200, and these got the questionnaire shared.
Is the list available somewhere?
That's something we're not allowed to do. Yeah.
Do you have any data about the profitability of the companies, and especially how percentage of games that are profitable, and what are the return on sales of these companies? Do you have any data about that?
Not for each company. Globally, in general, I can say too few, because everyone was struggling in 2024. Everyone reduced headcount in Austria and had issues financing the studio and keeping afloat. So I don't have specific numbers from studios now.
It's safe to say any studio that's still around has been profitable in the last 3 years.
No, that's not.
No?
Economically, no. Why would that be the case? You can also have a year where you make a loss. You're not gone just because
Yeah,
you
but
have a loss.
over the whole period.
Yeah, unless someone is financing you. We see that in these days with other industries. When you're in real estate, for example, it's also a thing where you just get money without proof or I don't know.
But sorry,
Yeah.
follow-up question. Do you know how the overall profitability compares to other industries?
I don't think that we ever asked for that. No. No.
Because that might be
An
some issue
indicator,
with
yes.
the financing thing.
Yeah.
Because if the bank knows of your profitability or the risk of game development is
Yeah.
so high, then of course you have difficulty financing.
Well, when you talk to a bank, then and you're a limited company, you need to provide the financial statement anyway. And for a lot of grants, you need to provide the financial statement. But I mean, financial statements from limited companies are theoretically available publicly when you pay a few euros to get that. But I don't think that we ever analyzed on that level yet. That was never part of the question. Yeah, it's a good point though. Yeah.
I want to add here that generally investment in game development companies is a high risk investment because there's a lot of or actually there's 100% almost upfront costs, and then there's a lot of luck involved in getting those back. It's not really a plannable business unless you have a huge portfolio. That's why we see big publishers being around and big investment companies. But for individual developer, it's very difficult. So even if we got the data, it would probably highly fluctuate. There would be a lot that barely keep afloat, and then there would be some that 100 times their expenses in profit. Probably not in Austria yet, but looking at other countries, for instance, if you look to Sweden and for instance, Mojang, the Minecraft makers, I don't know, spent 100,000 on developing the thing, and then were bought by 2 billion. What's the factor there?
A lot.
Pretty high.
Yeah.
They are still making money to this day, just for somebody else.
Yeah. Minecraft is doing. I worked for Microsoft, and the company bought Minecraft shortly. No, shortly before I joined, and the transition, making sure that the production processes were handled then by the headquarter in the States was a tricky one, and Microsoft back then said the only goal that we have is not to fuck it up. That was the quote from the production director back then. And just to give you an idea of what we are talking about, I think Minecraft cost 2.5 billion for Microsoft. That was something that they had lying around in Europe, and it was cheaper to buy something than transfer the money back to the States. That's the reason why they bought Minecraft, and that's the reason why they bought Skype back there, because they just had money lying around. And Minecraft back then made roughly 400 to 450 mil per year, so that was an easy bet because they knew that they had the money back in 3 years. Yeah. That's a different story, yeah. But just one thing to add that is one thing, and that is, I would like to ask all of you, when you talk to people about funding and games in general, the stand from PGDA and what we're really asking harshly or kindly for a couple of years now is we would like to mirror the Scandinavian model to Austria, with funds that are funded in the first step by the government, and then money is distributed to projects that are going through a quality criterion, like when you ask for funding in Austria, and when they reach a certain level or are chosen, then equity is brought in, and then equity can already choose from a pre-selected amount of projects, and then they can decide whether they invest in one project or in several to, as Dieter said, distribute the risk. And these companies, when they are successful, they need to feed back a certain percentage in that fund. And that is basically, and you are always correcting me because I'm saying it's a perpetuum mobile, and it's
positive feedback loop.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and this fund is working in itself in Scandinavia, in each country. Finland, for example, managed within 10 years with that specific model to increase, I think, from 200 mil to 2 billion in 10 to 15 years. And this is really working, and everyone is happy to give back when younger people, new studios are coming up with good ideas, that they get the funding. And it's slowly moving in that direction because the startup guys are very successful, successfuler than we are, because the government pushed for startups in the last 10 years. They are close to getting this fund, and they started in that. And there's one startup fund, I think with 20 mil in Austria already, that is working in that way. And I'm trying to convince people, and whoever doesn't want to hear it from me, I tell them that we would like to mirror that startup fund for games in Austria, because that would help all of us. Again, there's a lot of things that need to be done to get there. For example, the currency that I mentioned at the beginning, we need good projects that we can show, and we can't go in there and saying we have 10 projects. I would need to have a deck of cards with 50 projects that I can pitch and sell when I'm in that discussion. And that's the reason why it's super important to have successful projects in different stages, from university graduates, master projects, but also from established studios, because that will help us to kind of justify the investment in that. And I think we're getting there. I'm not sure whether it's done before I retire, but until I retire, I promise I will try my best to get there, and then it will be easier for a lot of people. Yeah.
It's maybe also important to mention here that it's hard, just like getting your first job is the most difficult, getting your first project funded is also the most difficult. I'm privy to some investment calls where a team of 5 veteran game developers from internationally known studios start a new startup and ask for 5 million, and they easily get it. If you're out of a university and you ask for 5,000, unless you ask your parents, you're probably not going to get it. That's the FFF funding round.
Yeah. It is just in general a perception or a reality check with what's happening in the industry since mid 24. When you look back at the very beginning, to pick up what Didel said, 20 years ago it was good enough to have a piece of paper with a good concept and a good idea, and you got 10 mil for a project that was fine enough from a financing point of view in early 2000s. Yeah, because that was what a project cost back then. And then it slowly came to you need to have a prototype, a very good prototype. Now, even if you have a prototype, it's not good enough for investors to give you 5 to 10 mil, even lower than 5. What they're now asking is a vertical slice, and that is a huge burden because it's a huge investment already that a small studio has to make in order to get a proper vertical slice. That's a lot that is asked, and this is the state of the industry that we are currently. We as Mipumi, we have this issue that people like what we do, but they say not good enough, we need to see more. So you need to provide a vertical slice when you want to have a larger chunk of money for project financing. Is it related? Because otherwise I would go for there.
I and some other people apparently want to ask what is a vertical slice.
Oh, which university did you do? It's bad. Michael?
It's my fault.
Okay. Production phases, is that clear to everyone? Concept, well, I started at the beginning. Incubation, concept, pre-production, production, submission, RTM phase, RTM, old school, physical medium. We are clear about that? Out of question? Yeah. The vertical slice is in the middle of production. When you are in a very large team and a very expensive project, you usually have 2 production phases, production 1, production 2, and the stage gate between production 1 and production 2 is the vertical slice, where you create a scene or 10 or 15 minutes of gameplay with the finished quality of the game. So you need to invest a lot because you are breaking the flow of your production, because you might need to produce something, an animation, a character that you thought of creating in 2 months from now, but actually to have the vertical slice you need that character now. So you need to take your team and need to take it off the normal production train and put them on something that costs you extra money. And just to convince an investor or to convince a publisher, even in in-house studios, sometimes this is needed for those stage gates, in order to be able to move forward. And that is a quite expensive thing to do. And today, for a larger sum above 1 mil, investors ask for a vertical slice because they say it's cool, but I want to see it. I don't want to imagine how it looks like. I want to see it, and they want to see 5 to 10 minutes gameplay super polished, and that is quite expensive. Question answer?
We will have to make the next question the last question. Okay.
Last question.
It's a yes or no question.
The most difficult one.
No, it's very simple. Does this study consider companies who work in the gambling industry as game development companies?
No.
Okay.
No. Please, this is dark side. We don't do dark
but
side.
it's an important thing.
No, it is a very, very valid question. Please, everything that we do, everything that PGDA stands for, everything that Dylan and I ever worked for and with is not gambling, and this is a line that we don't cross. Yeah.
Monetization.
That's a gray area, but we don't do gambling. I'm sorry, we need to take the question afterwards. We are done and finished with time. I thank you so much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you also in the television.
Please like and